What's up, guys? I'm Clay, and today I'm going to be talking about the effects of COVID-19 on the future of businesses and schools. So to start, COVID has allowed the future of American work to arrive early, and this technology to allow remote work, it's been around in this country for at least a decade now, but of course businesses across the country have had to implement it. So in April of this year, there were already 62% of American workers working remotely. And with working remotely, there's of course going to be pros and cons. And just some of the main pros, in my opinion, I would say is a less stressful work environment than the typical office scenario. And then a more lenient work schedule, I would say. And then there's also actually been reports of higher worker productivity by companies. So with the cons, there's definitely more distractions at home just with everything going on in the house. But as far as the main con, I would have to say just the lack of human interaction, because with working on Zoom, you're obviously going to be interacting over Zoom, but it's just that lack of a physical presence that can really take a mental toll on people over time. So this brings us to the big question. Will the majority of businesses continue to allow employees to work from home even after the pandemic? In my opinion, I think this is the future, and I wouldn't say it's going to be 100% of employees from home, but if you want to stay at home or you're high risk to certain diseases, right now corona obviously, then you're going to have the option to work at home. But if you're itching to get back in the office, then I think companies will be perfectly okay with that. As far as a right decision by companies, it's hard because what's right for some is going to be ineffective for others. So no matter what a company decides to do, there's going to be people who disagree. But towards the end of this pandemic, I think companies are going to just start allowing voluntarily in-person working. And if you want to work from home, I think they'll be completely okay with it. But who knows? We'll have to see. So with that being said, I'm going to move over and talk about the future of schools post-COVID-19. So to start, I'm in my classroom right now. We're all doing remote learning for the most part. And at this exact moment, just schools across the country and universities are having to make super hard decisions on when are we going back in person, because they have no idea when the vaccine is coming, and as of now the cases are actually going up. So who knows, maybe next semester we're just gonna be all online again. We'll have to see. But before I begin on all these decisions schools are having to make for their future, I'm gonna discuss the people most affected by remote learning. So unfortunately, with the disruption of educational institutes around the country, learners with disabilities are really affected more than others. So I'm mainly talking about high school and down, because in most schools there's special education classes and they all have their assistants, and they structure routines throughout the day so the kids get familiar with what to expect in school, and their assistants are always there for emotional support or to help fix something or whatever's going wrong. And with Zoom, it's obviously just thrown out the window, and the parents have to be with their kids, but obviously not everyone has that time because usually the kids just go to school, obviously. So the only solution I see is returning back in person, but obviously that's easier said than done. So that's just a whole tricky scenario, and it's a shame. But as far as schools deciding to remain online versus going in person in the future, in my opinion, I can see high schools and lower just trying their best to return in person, because that's really what high school, elementary, middle school is about: social interaction with the learning, and it's the stepping stone until you get to college or the workforce. But for universities and colleges, despite the loss of room and board revenue, online classes can actually be beneficial, and they actually can save money for some schools. But at the same time, the general majority of college students are not a fan of online classes. But then again, people who live off campus, now just a ton more people are going to start doing remote classes. So it'll be interesting what we see in the future, and no one knows. I mean, vaccine could be months, years, but whatever happens, it's going to be hard for schools because there's always going to be a side that's upset with the decision, and I really don't think there's a right or wrong choice, at least at the moment. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thanks for listening to my talk.